What if Robb Stark allied with Dorne, Part 2? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Daenerys overlooks the destruction of Astapor, pleased with the work of her Unsullied. They have proven their worth and more. Just as the good masters promised, they are obedient, solid, and highly skilled. The guards of the city didn't stand a chance once they turned them over to her. Now, as her Dothraki and freedmen gathered their provisions for the journey, Aggo arrives with a group of merchants in tow. They don't look like Ghiscari, and wear the tunics and robes of Westeros instead. Aggo says that they were traveling here to sell their wares to Slaver's Bay, dragonglass and gemstones that the masters would buy. One of the merchants bows.
We come to beg for our free passage out of this city. We understand your hatred for the good masters, but as you can see, we are not slavers. We are simple merchants who hail from the Kingdom of the Storm.
Kingdom of the Storm? Is that what the realm is called now?
Begging your pardon, Queen Daenerys, but you must be more specific. There is no longer a single kingdom in Westeros. The realm has been split.
Split? How has that come to pass?
A part of her is shocked by this. Her ancestors had left a kingdom united and strong for 3 centuries, and Robert had seen it collapse in less than 15 years. But another part feels excited. This is the perfect opportunity to strike. The realm was divided when Aegon landed on the mainland and forged his empire.
I am not certain of all the details, but I understand that after King Robert died and his son Joffrey took the throne, not all saw his claim as legitimate. There were rumors that he was a bastard born of incest between Jaime Lannister and Queen Cersei.
Daenerys' jaw falls open at that news. Viserys had always said the Lannisters are treacherous and savage by nature, but this was something even beyond them. Did they really plan to usurp the throne from underneath Robert like that?
Because of that, Robert's brother Stannis declared himself the true king of the 7 kingdoms, but others don't like that. Robb Stark declared independence and secretly allied with Dorne to secure their freedom as well. They crushed Tywin Lannister in the Riverlands, while Stannis defeated Renly. After that, Stannis was said to have fallen ill, or been poisoned. No one is truly certain. But without Stannis, his daughter was crowned, and she made peace with them. Now the realm is divided into 3. The Kingdom of the Storm, the Kingdom of the North, and the Principality of Dorne.
This is big news for Daenerys, who realizes the sheer magnitude of this opportunity. If she plays her cards right, she might be able to invade Westeros at a time when it is divided, just as Aegon the Conqueror did. As she glances up towards her dragons which soar overhead, they are only a bit larger than a fox at this point. Hardly a comparison to Balerion and his siblings, but given enough time, they might grow into something truly powerful. More importantly, she has a city's wealth and an army riding at her back. Glancing back at the merchant, she bowed her head respectfully.
Thank you for bringing me this information. Rest assured you shall be allowed to go in peace, although I expect you will remain silent on our conversation.
Meanwhile, in Westeros, the 3 kingdoms lick their wounds and begin to recover from the war. Robb turns his efforts back to the north, clearing up the remaining Ironborn and helping the Night's Watch fortify the wall as rangers soon arrive, reporting on the looming wildling invasion, as well as the presence of the White Walkers beyond the wall. While Robb initially refuses to believe it, Alliser Thorne arrives in Winterfell, presenting the severed hand of one of the Whites, a hand that still writhes and twitches. He sends some men to help them, but also turns his attention to rebuilding the Riverlands, which were left devastated. Meanwhile, Shireen is too young and untested to rule in her own right, so she is placed under the regency of Axel Florent, her granduncle. Alongside Melisandre, the two urge Shireen to straighten their position and prepare for war with Robb and Dorne once again. Though Stannis might be dead, she is now the legacy of Azor Ahai, therefore she must unite the realm. But moderate voices like Sir Davos caution her from shattering the fragile peace. The people are exhausted, and waging a war of conquest against one kingdom will only agitate the other and drive them back into alliance. To placate them, Davos and the king's men urge Shireen to consolidate power in regions already under her control. Places like the Westerlands and Vale are still not fully pacified, and the Ironborn are still quite rebellious. Meanwhile, Dorne is left to grapple with strengthening its kingdom. It is the smallest and least populous of the new kingdoms. It has little arable land, and even fewer resources save for trade. This leaves them vulnerable should the Iron Throne ever decide to invade. But so far these fears remain unfounded, as all three kingdoms enjoy surprisingly friendly relations. Dorne and the North have not forgotten the blood they shed throughout the War of the Five Kings. Robb and Oberyn continue to correspond. Meanwhile, Shireen is a breath of fresh air compared to her stern, uncompromising father. She doesn't seem interested in attacking either side, and while they worry her counsel might steer her to war, they remain hopeful that the king's men continue to hold sway. So far, all three sides remain at peace, and instead turn their wars across different groups outside the continent. Oberyn seeks conquest elsewhere to use it to secure Dorne's trade. Shireen invades the Westerlands to finally bring it to heel, and Robb drives the Ironborn from their remaining castles across the stony shore. And with this, moves to solidify peace more and more. Queen Shireen realizes that to secure her throne, she must marry someone as soon as she comes of age. While that is some time away, Sir Axel secures an excellent match, Loras Tyrell of the Reach, the famed Knight of Flowers. He once rode alongside Renly Baratheon, serving as his most loyal sword. He is a knight famed for his beauty and courage, but most importantly is connected to Mace Tyrell, securing their support. At the same time, it also elevates Sir Axel's standing even further. Many in her kingdom praise this as an excellent match, but the Dornish are less than pleased. While House Tyrell is popular within the Kingdom of the Storms, their rivalry with House Martell is a troubling development.
This marriage puts Dorne in a precarious position. I had hoped the Onion Knight and his kingsmen would temper the young queen and prevent her from doing anything foolish, but the Tyrells throw their support behind the queen's men and push for war. Are you certain of this, brother? The Lord of Light is as strange to them as it is to us. Will they truly back a foreign god? I knew that fat flower well, and it is not a god he fights for, but what he can put his grubby hands on. He wishes to marry into royalty, and he will not settle for half the Seven Kingdoms. Besides, Sir Axel is his bannerman. He will stand beside him. The Roses have never had any love for us, and that one is most eager to show us his thorns. Perhaps, but Dorne has never been conquered by the Reach. For all their wealth and soldiers, their men still need water and cannot march over deserts.
The doors suddenly slide open, and a figure makes his way inside.
Deserts are a fine defense, Prince Doran, but can you be certain it is enough? Sir Gerald, I did not know you would be here. I have come to serve our kingdom, and I must say, this is a troubling development. Surely we must make our concern known. We are no longer ruled by the Iron Throne. That means they are no longer inclined to listen to our wishes. Indeed. But that also means they cannot bother us when we go about our own affairs. If we were to seize the stepstones and secure our trade routes, they surely cannot complain about that.
Doran thinks about that thoughtfully. It is a bold move and will ruffle feathers, but if he goes about it in the right way, he might be able to placate the Iron Throne. He does this by returning Marcella to the Westerlands. It had remained one of the sticking points of peace, as some worried whether the Dornish might use her as a puppet should they try to take Castle Rock. With them at peace, Dorne sets sail and emerges in the choppy waters around the stepstones. Oberyn stands atop the prow of his warship, as war horns echo across the narrow straits. Dornishmen and sellswords swarm across the scattered islands as they brave the javelin and arrows storm from pirate strongholds. Oberyn raises his spear and leads them forward, striking through the pirate strongholds and petty fortresses alike. The battles are hard fought, as the Dornish fight for every inch of territory they take. Scalding water and poisoned arrows greet them at every battle, while caves are filled with sharpened stakes and even hidden pots of wildfire smuggled there. The losses are heavy, but they cannot match Oberyn's craftiness. In Sunspear, Prince Doran stands in the shadowed halls of the Water Gardens, reading the Raven's message. He closes his eyes. Victory, at last. The stepstones belong to Dorne. But in the Kingdom of the Storms, the response is less enthusiastic. The small council looks over a map where Dornish banners now cover the stepstones.
My lords, this cannot stand. They choke trade through the narrow sea. Lannisport suffers. Old Town bleeds. And yet we are to do nothing. The Dornish are now an independent kingdom. So long as they do not attack us, we cannot attack them without appearing as tyrants. Perhaps we should send a delegation to Sunspear and negotiate these tolls. The Martells have always been treacherous. First they cripple my son, next they tax my ships like pirates. And now the merchants of Old Town in the Arbor wail that they will be brought to ruin. The Martells did us a service. The stepstones were infested. Pirates, slavers, corsairs, all gone. Perhaps we find a way to talk before we draw swords again.
The chamber goes quiet. Then Melisandre speaks, her voice like embers.
The sun has risen higher than it should, but it cannot replace the Lord of Light. I see the Serpent Prince kneeling before a golden throne of coral, offering to his brother a second crown.
And what do you suggest we do?
We must project strength. Remind them that our navy is stronger than anything they have, and it would be foolish to test us. Then I might offer a suggestion.
War drums sound again, this time not from the south, but west. The Iron Throne, wary of Dornish ambition, rushes to reclaim the next broken kingdom and project its strength. The Iron Islands are the next to fall now that the Westerlands are brought low. Robb Stark agrees to lend ships and men to the campaign, offering joint command and support. On paper, it is an alliance. In Dorne's eyes, it is encirclement. Darkstar points out that this puts the Iron Throne in a prime position to invade the north and prevent them from sending aid to Dorne. The invasion of the Iron Islands goes smoothly, after already being battered and beaten on land. The Red Wine Fleet and Robb's patchwork fleet of fishing skiffs, captured longships, and newly built galleys rush from the north. They encircle the Iron Islands and begin landing. Robb seizes Pike, and the crown hits Harlaw and Old Wick. With their major islands falling, the others begin to collapse into chaos as their longships cannot compete with the larger galleys. But the cooperation ends with the capture of Pike, as two potential candidates emerge from the new rulers. Robb favors Roderick Harlaw, one of the most powerful bannermen, and wishes for House Greyjoy to be stripped of its rule over the Iron Islands for its betrayal. Roderick also wishes for neutrality, for the Iron Islands to remain out of the war. However, Sir Axel finds Asha Greyjoy, who knows that they cannot trust the Northmen to stay their blades after everything they've done. She instead suggests joining the Iron Throne for protection, as they have not wronged them, and even indirectly helped them by attacking the North. And as a maiden, she could be married off to a loyal bannerman and secure the Iron Islands. Robb tries to push for Lord Roderick, but lacks the troops to truly challenge their claim, and must concede once the Crown sails its fleet to Lordsport to proclaim Asha. To some, particularly in the north, it feels like betrayal. Among them is Roose Bolton, who now sees that the kingdom is surrounded not just on land, but also on the sea. The wolf helped the stag, only for the kraken to answer to the stag. But another reason why Robb cannot return now is that the news from the wall forces him to withdraw, as the wildlings have invaded, and he must reinforce them. Some of his bannermen wish to continue the war in the Iron Islands, but Robb knows the dangers beyond the wall. He sails his fleet home, gritting his teeth and allowing the Iron Islands to remain under Greyjoy hands. Back home, he rides hard with his army to confront the wild horde. As they threaten to breach Castle Black, the gates suddenly swing open, revealing nearly 3,000 heavy horses, followed by a myriad of men-at-arms and infantrymen. Snow lashes the battlements as Jon sees his brother come through. Even though they are outnumbered nearly 10-1, the battle is remarkably one-sided as they smash through the ranks of the wildlings, who are swiftly routed, with Mance captured. But Robb does not order their slaughter. He hears Mance, who confirms everything they fear and opens the gate. Thousands pass through, refugees, children, warriors who have seen the dead walk. From King's Landing, another raven flies. Quietly, uneasily, the court watches.
They say the king in the north trains with the free folk now. With them, he has more men than even the Reach. If it comes to war, we will be hard-pressed to beat them back a second time.
Yet the war comes far closer to home, as in the dead of night, the ships arrive at Blackwater Bay. It is not a large force, hardly enough to seize King's Landing, but enough to make their presence known. The black sails of Daenerys Targaryen crest the morning fog. Her dragons wheel above Dragonstone as the unsullied land unopposed. The garrisons surrender without a fight. No lord in the Crownlands expected her to return so soon. By nightfall, the Targaryen banner flies once more from the Tower of Dragonstone. Across the realm, ravens fly. Shock spreads like wildfire. Shireen's small council assembles at once.
You don't survive being a smuggler by being jumpy. We should send boys first to see what she wants. Act diplomatic to avoid rousing her. She calls us usurpers in our own realm. She threatens war and claims the Iron Throne when she hasn't even set foot there. Let her come. We will show her what happened to the last ruler who thought themselves above the reach.
She burns too hot. The fire is untempered. She may bring death or salvation.
Send envoys, but prepare the Reach for war. Have the army reinforce King's Landing. I have no doubt these aren't the last of her troops.
In the shaded stillness of the water gardens, Dorne pens a letter. He offers Daenerys an alliance through marriage. His son Quinlan Martell, clever to bring Dorne back into the fold, but Oberyn warns she does not want equals. She wants vassals. Robb Stark receives the news at Winterfell, seated in the Godswood, and offers his terms. The North shall offer an alliance, peace, trade, and support to the Dragon Queen. But they shall not sacrifice the independence they fought so hard for. In the Great Hall of Dragonstone, envoys from all three kingdoms gather. Sir Barristan reads their message aloud. Peace, alliance, marriage. Daenerys listens, face carved from dragonglass. Then she rises. Her voice rings like steel.
I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. I have crossed deserts, freed slaves, survived assassins and betrayals. I have come to the realm of the Seven Kingdoms that are mine by blood and birthright. You offer me alliances, but only if I accept that what is mine is no longer mine. I offer you this instead. Bend the knee, accept my rule, and your houses shall remain. Refuse, and I will take back what is mine, as Aegon did before me, with fire and blood.
Unsurprisingly, no one finds these terms acceptable, especially to a queen whom they've never seen before, or who never ruled them. Instead, Sunspear, King's Landing, and Winterfell begin calling their banners for war, waiting for the hammer to fall. Daenerys' fleet slowly trickles in, and as they arrive, she considers where they might strike. Moving south is dangerous, as the Stepstones are under Martell control, and they've managed to challenge the dragons before. Instead, she lands at the Vale, which is geographically isolated from the rest of the Iron Throne, despite being one of its domains. The Vale Knights are some of the best in the world, but they cannot stop dragons, as their bloody gate was only meant to stop men on land. As the fleet arrives, the dragons fly ahead, burning the ships as the Unsullied disembark. The narrow mountain passes working in their favor as they form tight shield walls at choke points and stop the knights in their tracks. Along with them, hordes of freedmen swarm the ground, securing the castles they capture. Without any way to send aid, the Vale is left isolated and soon falls to Daenerys. She then emerges from the riverlands and burns through the countryside, letting her armies fan out in a great sweeping swarm that rushes to capture as much land as possible. With the riverlands, she will be able to secure the neck and prevent the Starks from marching south while striking at the Reach, Westerlands, or Crownlands. Black smoke coils over the treetops and burned fields, the stench of charred timber and flesh soaking into every breeze. Crows wheel overhead. The land is broken. Again. Daenerys Targaryen watches from Dragonback, her white hair streaming like a banner as she flies over the embers of another village. Her army surges beneath her, unsullied in perfect formations, driving through fallen holdfasts. Behind them, the Dothraki and sellswords thunder forward in reckless joy, whooping as they set fire to wagons and slit the throats of any who resist. This is not conquest. This is a reminder. This land once bowed to a dragon. It will do so again. She offers these terms to the Riverlands to yield and fight, and they refuse. Now they face the consequences. From the crumbled towers of Fairmarket to the fields outside Saltpans, her banners rise with every mile, and with every mile she closes the noose around the heart of Westeros. But resistance springs up quickly as scattered bands of river lords and masterless men-at-arms rally to their side and wage a guerrilla war against Daenerys. They strike at her unsullied columns or ambush sellswords. Her scouts already reach as far as the Twins and secure a route for her army to strike at the neck and secure it. But 3 days later, they hear reports that an army has crossed Moat Cailin to face her. The Northmen squat by the bogs, where Unsullied cannot get into formation, and Dothraki horses are poorly equipped for the mud. But the swamp defends itself. The swamps drink armies with quicksand and lizard lions. Men drown where they stand, pulled under by sludge and shadow. Panic spreads. Above it all, the first howl comes, then another. Dozens. wolves and giants. Looming from the hills of the rills, wrapped in furs and bone armor, they come. They wield trunks as clubs and pull great bows longer than a horse. They fire not arrows, but spears. One of Daenerys' dragons sweeps low to drive them off, and is struck. The shaft slams into its hindquarters, piercing scale and tendon. The Viserion hisses and tries to escape, taken out of the fight. Behind them, wildlings roar and rush between the trees, aided by crannogmen, who offer them passageway through the few safe routes. With the unsullied formations in tatters, they now find themselves fighting alone or in small groups as Northmen rush to reinforce them. Daenerys wheels Drogon around, braving the storms of arrows, but see that resistance is futile, and instead tries to escape, ordering her army back to withdraw her forces to safety, her army struggling after her. But in that time, the Storm Kingdom acts. Their army mobilizes, led by Loras Tyrell and Sir Richard Horpe. Their entrance is heralded by wildfire, which burns through the few captured castles of Daenerys, driving them back as they advance through Harrenhal. The garrison left there is quickly overwhelmed, and their new weapons are put into place. When she retreats south, she faces off against the iron-tipped ballista bolts, each longer than a man's arm. She must retreat from this assault as the Northmen advance south and the Reachmen march north. The only consolation is that these armies do not join forces. They soon also skirmish with each other, the Stormlanders squatting on Harrenhal while Robb makes his headquarters in Riverrun, and Daenerys' army is caught in between. The riverlands are charred husks. The veil lies still beneath Daenerys' fist, but she cannot press further. Her dragons rest more than fly. Her unsullied thin. Her Dothraki lose interest in a war without glory. And worse still, her enemies endure. The north remains untouched. The Stormlands push back each advance with devastating precision, and Dorne watches, tense. But while the flames hold steady, attempts are made by the likes of Davos and Doran to broker some peace, to unite their houses against a common threat. But always there is one who urges for war. Sir Axel, Darkstar, and Roose Bolton trust none of the other kings, urging them to fight. They remind their kings and queens of old slights, provide warnings, and tell them that peace will give Daenerys free rein to cause chaos. Instead, all sides commit their forces to war, and Robb launches a desperate attack to break the deadlock. He rides down the Trident, aiming to secure the waterways and allow him to move his troops. Thousands of Northmen and wildlings march south to reach the Great River, but they are met with Sir Loras, who rides out upon Melisandre's instructions. A heavy mist hangs over the river, and the trees are black with ash. Robb Stark rides beneath their shadow, his direwolf cloak soaked with dew and blood. Around him, his armies clash against the Reachmen, as they did during Robert's rebellion. Northmen in steel and fur, wildlings with crude axes, giants trudging slow and steady. They all meet the waiting Reachmen in their orderly lines and spear walls. If the Trident falls to him, he will be in a position to move his troops around more easily, but that requires beating back the army here and now. Sir Loras Tyrell rides at the head of the Stormlands host, his armor gilded. Behind him, standing high on a black dais overlooking the field, Melisandre watches with eyes like coals. She wears no armor. She needs none. The two forces clash with the sound of a storm breaking. The Trident churns red. Northmen and wildlings charge headlong across makeshift bridges, or at a few selected crossing points, screaming Robb's name. The giants knock aside horsemen like dolls. The Tyrells respond with flaming arrows and disciplined lines. Archers fire in volleys. The Stormlanders hold fast while the Westermen sweep in with their heavy horses. And then the sky roars. Daenerys' dragons descend. Wings block out the sun. Their cries echo across the battlefield as fire rains down from the sky. Trees explode into flame. Whole companies vanish beneath the blaze. But the north does not break. Robb rides beneath the dragon's shadows, sword drawn. He orders his giants to force them back as the ground burns around them. However, one person who does get his attention is Loras Tyrell. He knows his mission, to make the king bleed, as Melisandre puts it. Roaring, the Knight of Flowers rushes in, sweeping his longsword back and forth as he cuts down anything that gets in his way. He fights like a storm, rushing through nearly a dozen men before making his way towards Robb. The king in the north tries to defend himself, and certainly has the skill, but he is far from a match to Loras. The knight forces him back, and then slashes him across his sides, and leaves him doubled over. Melisandre lifts her hands. Fire curls around her wrists. Her eyes close. She is chanting now, in a language older than Old Valyria. This is no mere battle to her. It is a ritual. Flames from the dragons burn bright, and she whispers to R'hllor to grant her a blessing. Robb and Loras clash again and again. The young wolf fights with fury, but exhaustion slows him. Loras lands a blow, a deep cut across Robb's leg. Blood spills into the dirt. Robb stumbles. He rises, stumbles again. At that moment, Melisandre feels it. The blood, the royal blood, calls out. She seizes it. The ritual deepens. From her flames, she feels herself blessed with the shadows just as Loras withdraws. A signal to retreat. The Northmen believe that they have beaten the enemy back, but none of them can truly celebrate this victory as they are too busy dragging their wounded king away. But 1,000 leagues away, the wall begins to crack. The magic that has held for thousands of years trembles, not from age, but from disruption. The charm woven into the stone of the wall begins to unravel. The act of mass blood sacrifice on such a scale, so near to royal blood, so laced with shadow, tears at the fabric of old magic. The wind howls, and beyond the wall, they march. The battle ends in chaos. Robb is pulled from the field by his men, barely alive. Loras is wounded, his vanguard broken but not defeated. Daenerys calls off her dragons before one is struck by a giant's last dying throw. Fire seeds to smoke, but no one celebrates. In the north, the ravens stop coming. In the night forts, the flames in the hearth are extinguished. At the edge of the world, in the white silence, death begins to walk. The wind howls over the wall. The spells that held it strong for thousands of years are undone, fractured by the blood magic loosed far to the south. No horn sounded, no warning came, only the cold and the silence, and then the storm. They came as shadows bearing weapons of ice that did not shatter, with eyes burning blue. White Walkers descended not as raiders, but as generals of death. The Night's Watch fights bravely, using the ruins to make their stand, raining arrows down on them. Dragonglass harvested from Skagos gives them a fighting chance, but their numbers are few. Robb took most of the Northmen with him. Those who remain are the wildlings who lack the discipline to hold the wall. Though they hold long enough to get word out, they cannot keep the Whites back. By the time the Raven reaches Winterfell, the North is already breaking. As Sansa receives this letter, the rest of the North gets the same letter, telling them only one thing: to run. The wildlings of the Gift stream out of their homes, followed by the sea of refugees that rush south in a desperate bid to escape. She tries to hold the castle as best she can. She speaks with calm dignity, but beneath the surface is the truth. She was raised for courts, not fields of frost and death. Men answer her call, brave men willing to give everything for it, and old men who are ready for their last winter. But bravery is no match for death. Whites pour over the hills, crawling through snowdrifts and tumbling down from trees. The giants fall, torn apart by dozens of undead. Wargs die screaming, their minds overwhelmed by the cold. Sansa watches as last hearth falls, then Deepwood Motte, then Barrowlands. With their dead bolstering the army, it seems like a sea of darkness moving across the landscape, swarming everything that gets in its path. Those who aren't fast enough to get out of the way succumb to death. Winterfell's walls are not enough, and despite Sansa's brave leadership, their fortress is battered again and again. They slay thousands of Whites. It doesn't matter, as the Whites stream inside, and Sansa barely escapes with her life. Robb Stark, still wounded from the trident, rides with his arm in a sling and his body half bound in linen. He can barely stand, but he continues to inspire his men, visiting them and rallying those around him. But their morale plummets as they hear this news. The people are horrified, barely able to react to the development. Robb does, and decides to act. He makes a pronouncement.
The North cannot hold. I will bend the knee. I will name any queen. I will yield crown and sword. But help us. Save what lives remain.
Oberyn Martell reads the Raven by torchlight. His hands tremble, not in fear, but in fury. He wishes to send aid and still recalls their alliance long ago, but Dorne is boxed in. The reach to the west will not let them through. The Crownlands are hostile. The Stepstones are narrow and dangerous. By land or sea, They are isolated. Still, Oberyn writes,
To Queen Shireen of House Baratheon, I am no friend to your house, but I have seen what walks in the dark, and no prince of Dorne would let children die on frozen shores while we stand idle in gold and sand. I ask not as a prince, but as a man. Let me through. Let us fight together. For the sake of my people and yours, I beg this of you.
He gives the letter to a messenger who sails through waters to King's Landing and places the scroll in Sir Davos's hands. King's Landing, the Queen's choice. The chamber is silent as Shireen reads.
My queen, there are rumors of creatures beyond the wall. If we do nothing, the whole realm will follow. You would have us mobilize our army for tall tales after Sir Loras nearly killed their king. How certain are we that this is not some trap? One of you known a Stark to lie about anything. Have you not heard of a wolf in sheep's clothing?
I looked into the flames and I saw fire swallowed by frost. I saw kings screaming beneath the snow. But now I see ships and dragons. There is still hope.
Send the fleet.
When Robb's second raven reaches Dragonstone, Daenerys holds it in her trembling hands. She has burned so much, bled so much, but to be seen as queen. Now the young wolf offers her the crown she sought.
This must be a trick.
I know the boy, your grace, and I served alongside his father. Starks are honest to a fault, and proud. They would not humble themselves like this without good reason.
Daenerys stares out at the people. She questions what this could mean, but as she sees movement in the front, she cannot ignore the trouble and orders Drogon to be brought to her. Ships sent by Shireen arrive at White Harbor, escorted by Dornish corsairs. The Iron Fleet, commanded by Asha, is also sent under Melisandre's instructions, evacuating whoever they can. Drogon flies overhead. The ships reach for their weapons, but Daenerys ignores them, and the dragon flies back. And there she sees the truth. As civilians flood south, women, children, old men barely able to walk, Daenerys and her dragons hover over the fields, raining fire upon the dead. Every breath of flame buys a heartbeat. She rides back and forth, all across the front. She rains down fire all across the ground, igniting the dead as she urges the people to fly. They rest wherever they can and spend entire days burning fiery windows for the people to escape. That is, until one dragon screams. Rhaegal flies low to torch a frozen grove, and from the midst, a spear of pure ice lances upward. It strikes deep into his chest, and the dragon crashes with a scream that splits the air. His wings beat frantically as he crashes into the frozen lake, thrashing, shattering ice before silence claims him. Daenerys screams from above but cannot land. The other dragons wheel back. The flames flicker. The Night King watches them from the ridge. His spear glows with frostlight. He raises one hand casually, and Rhaegal rises again. The ships flee south, carrying what survivors they can. The fields of north are drowned in snow and blood. Winterfell lies in ruin. The war for thrones is no more. Now comes the war for Dawn. But the north is beyond saving, and many people just make their escape. The Crannogmen gather what survivors make it to the neck and guide them to safety. White Harbor is fortified, and many flee on whatever ships they can. Meanwhile, the army of the living gather on the Trident for the third time. The first time, a prince died with a ruby breastplate. The second, the war over the realm that birthed 1,000 ghosts. Now, for the third and final time, the Trident becomes humanity's last stand. The Iron Throne under Queen Shireen, her fleet battered but intact, her forces bolstered by wildfire and ballista. The Stormlands in Reach, led by Sir Loras Tyrell, along with the Westerlands in Vale. Dorne's swiftest riders under Oberyn Martell, who already ride ahead to protect the refugees, coming from the neck with light cavalry charges. Daenerys and her Unsullied, forming up on the banks of the river with Dothrakian freedmen massing behind them. And the north, broken but not beaten, follows Robb Stark, riding with a black bandage across his ribs. Behind them, Sansa Stark leads the survivors as far away as they can. Oberyn rides ahead of the main host, striking hard and fast through the forests and fjords. His Dornish cavalry harass the dead, slowing their march, baiting them into ambushes, burning what they cannot save. He loses half his riders in the first day, but his swift sand steeds barely keep them ahead, and there he deploys his weapons. poisons so acidic they melt flesh off the whites, sapping their unholy strength. It keeps him just ahead of their forces as he continues to ride, each hour letting a ship escape while the armies form up. But he cannot hold them off for long. After days of fighting, he rides back to the Trident. The Night King arrives in silence. The land dies beneath them. As they near the banks of the Trident, the river freezes beneath their steps. A great rushing river turned to glass. The White Walkers march across the frozen river. The clash is cataclysmic. The North holds the center, giants slamming their clubs into the undead, wildlings screaming in defiance. The Kingdom of Storms takes the right flank under blazing wildfire banners. Sir Loras duels a White Walker atop a frozen ridge, his blade forged with hastily found dragonglass. The Dornish went right through their flanks, skirmishing and throwing pots of wildfire. To their side, the Unsullied form up and are supported by the rest of Daenerys' army. They smash into the left flank. From above, Daenerys' dragons sweep in long arcs, setting the river ablaze, melting ice and turning the undead to ash. And they still come. Yet for the moment, they held until the icy dragon arrived, unleashing frozen fire into their lines. Unsullied freeze in place, Dornish riders shatter, and Northmen break. Randall Tarley directs his archers to take them down, but arrows glance off Rhaegal's hide, and he counters with flames that engulf their ranks. Chaos spreads, and their ranks begin to break. Though Robb rides up and down the lines, trying to rally his forces and close the gap, the whites begin to pour through. As Rhaegal approaches for another sweep, he has the giants aim with their bows and fire. Arrows rip through the rotting flesh of the dragon, but these are tinged with something more. Oberyn's poison, which already causes the flesh to sizzle. As Rhaegal tumbles, Shireen's ballista opens fire as well, hurling pots of wildfire that send Rhaegal crashing into the woods. As the hill is lit up with flame and blood, Melisandre completes her final prayer. Her face is pale, her lips cracked, her voice wavers. She whispers Robb's name, then Loras's, then Oberyn's, then Shireen's. A shadow, wreathed in fire, bursts from her body and streaks across the battlefield toward the Night King. It strikes with all the force of a god's fury, slamming into the frozen monarch. He reels, wounded for the first time. His chest cracks, his ice splinters, but he does not fall. The shadow vanishes with a hiss. Melisandre collapses. The Night King begins to move. With each step, the temperature drops. The ice beneath their feet groans, fractures. His eyes fix on Robb, Daenerys, and Oberyn, standing side by side amidst the flames, the dead, closing in. Robb raises his sword, fingers shaking. Oberyn spins his poisoned spear, and Loras with his sword. Daenerys lands hard atop the ice, her dragon screaming behind her, smoke trailing from his wings.
He bleeds, and I'll make him bleed again.
Together, they charge. Robb strikes first, his blade breaking in half the Night King's sword. Oberyn lunges, his dragonglass spear sinking into the Night King's wounded chest. Daenerys screams, letting Drogon unleash his fire, and as it dissipates, Loras and Robb strike in unison, driving their swords into his chest. The ice explodes. Silence. Then, a sound like shattering glass. The Night King falls, cracking and burning from within, collapsing into shards and mist. With the dead gone, the talks of peace commence. The North is exhausted, and most of its population has fled to the devastated riverlands, which are in ruins. But Robb honors his word and offers to bend the knee, and yet neither Shireen nor Daenerys are prepared to accept it. They will not take advantage of the North while it is so vulnerable. Instead, they offer to help with its rebuilding, especially Daenerys, who offers to help settle the freedmen there in the land. Meanwhile, Shireen uses the wealth of her realm to help rebuild the ruined infrastructure, sending maesters and healers, while Dorne restores its old alliance with the North. It soon becomes clear to all of them that the Seven Kingdoms are no more, especially to Daenerys. She sees that the realm is better off this way and leaves them in peace, though Dragonstone is ceded to her so she may live there in her ancestral home. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.